and let me know if you can see everything. Is this visible? Okay, thank you. So, hello, I am Auguste, and today we will be scratching the surface of what it takes to produce a video game. Now, as everybody else, I will also give a disclaimer that, of course, I'm by no means a professional. I just happen to be in the gaming course. I'm a first-year computer games student, and I will introduce you to the industry real quick. So, okay, yeah. I wanted to start with a hypothetical question on what video games mean to you. Since it's such a niche topic, I was wondering just how many people are going to be interested. Maybe some of you just only know what Mario is. Maybe some of you grew up playing browser games. Maybe others got their first smartphone and were excited to play the biggest Fruit Ninja. Maybe you're a traditional FPS player or a story player. Maybe you're just joining gaming through Among Us. Whatever it is, uh, behind each of these games, there's a dedicated team hiding with quite a bit of revenue. So if we look at the general entertainment industry's global market on 2020, of course, one Google search apparently made me a data scientist, but this is what I got. That now think about it. If music industry was worth $12 billion, movie industry was worth $12 billion as well. Well, I was a little bit more how do I say it? I was rather nice about it and told that they had a big drop from $23 billion since because of COVID. And of course, sports industry is huge. It's $388 billion. And I'm not sure if I'm gonna see a chat, but can you quickly give a guess on uh, looking at all these numbers, how much video game industry was worth during 2020? Does anybody have any ideas? 15, I'm seeing 15, 500. One more. Somebody guess one more time. 10 to 20, 21 billion. Well, I must say that actually 300. Okay, you were, guys, pretty close one because yes, it was worth $162 billion and is expected to reach 300 by 2027. So as you can see, it's bigger than Hollywood and music industry combined. So it's yeah, I am pretty sure it definitely is the most underrated yet the biggest industry in the entertainment wise. And now that we know the scale of it, will quickly introduce you to the team of digital gods. Well, they are just a team of developers. I call them gods because you technically need to understand how the world works, physics, color, and then take it to digital world and enhance it. And yeah, let's just oops. And yeah, this is what I found since I cannot remember all of the possible roles. But if you excuse me for a minute, I can try to read them out to you, which because we have one, two, three. Creative director, project manager, designer, concept artist, art director, environment artist, animator, sound designer, audio designer, composer, visual effects artist, writer, lighter, legal, character artist, gameplay programmer, AI programmer, network programmer, release engineer, core engineer programmer, tools programmer, level designer, UI designer, combat designer, system designer, monetization designer, QA designer, usability researcher, localization, producer, publisher, CEO, PR, community manager, customer support, and player. Yes, I'm not a rapper as well, but as you can see, you don't have to worry about all of these. Clearly, I will go on the most general roles that are needed by explaining what each of them would do with a piece of doors. And yeah, we will start with management. And as any industry, we need a director, project manager, or producer. Creative director generally is a role that is earned. It's not really given. If you're a creative director, that means that the team is believing in your idea so much, they treat you like a director. So it's like, oh, you're so good, you have so many great ideas, be our director. You can't just come up and randomly say, I want to be a director. And project manager and producer is put on a slash because in some studios they are the same person, in others they are don't, because they're not, because project manager is not, if it's their own role, if it's on its own role, they don't necessarily need to know how the entire industry works, because they mainly work with scheduling. However, producer is the connection between all the disciplines. So it's basically a jack of all trades, unfortunately master of none. And however, yes, they are the core of the team, yet they do not make anything tangible like the rest of the teams that we're gonna cover right now. Because I'm gonna start with the design team. And game designer, of course, they do a lot of things, but if I was to sum up, they would write a document explaining what we would need to do with the doors. So we're gonna cover what a game design document is later on. However, it's important for the pre-production phase so that the entire team knows what to expect from the process. Content designer is just a fancy word to say a writer. They basically, yeah, they would write a story and the dialogue of the doors. If they could speak in that world as well. So basically, writers also could be responsible for the lore of the characters, for the descriptions of the items, all of that stuff. And system designer could go into coding as well, since they are there to work with maths. They work with sheets, a lot of Excel, and a lot of calculating of the velocity of the bullets or the weight and strength of the weapons, depending on either they're based on real weapons or not. So it's just a lot of artists. I cannot cover too much there. I'm an artist as well. Level designer. Wait, did I just say that system designer is an artist? No, probably. Okay, yeah, no way. There are a lot of maths, just a lot of maths. That's all need to know. So level designer is also it is as it sounds. They would decide on the doors, on where the doors are on the level, how do they open, how do they close. And if we look at the broader scale, they are responsible for blocking out the entire level without using the assets necessarily. And their responsibility is also to lay down the path for the player. Oh, I'm sorry. You're gonna see a cat for a bit, I think. Maybe not. Give me 1 second. Okay, but I will, while my camera wakes up. Yes, level designer, their responsibility is to lay down the path for the player, either with the control of the environmental objects or lighting, so the player knows where to go unconsciously. Or if I were to give a better example, if you are, for example, an FPS player, a level designer's job is to calculate the distance between a spawn point and the choke point. So basically a point where two opposing teams meet each other and fight. And if we go to the art team, look at that, that's my art. Mom, I made it. Yes, I started as a concept artist, and concept artist's job is just basically to paint the pretty pictures of the doors. To paint the environment, to decide how the environment is going to look and how the characters are going to look, and lay down clearly so that they can be given to character artists, because character artists, they will turn them into tangible 3D object. Well, it's not really tangible, it's digital, but let's say tangible if the game is in 3D. And environment artist is a lot like character artists as well. They both have the power of harnessing the insane 3D modeling softwares, which I am learning right now. It's it's a little bit painful, but that's why I have quite a bit of respect for them. But yes, environment artist deals with environmental assets. And animator is like in any visual industry, really. Their job is to take those character models, rig them, which is basically just give a skeleton for the for the model so that they can model it frame by frame, and that takes just a lot of patience. One of my team members ran out the door when I asked him to animate. Yeah, that's how fun it is. And technical artists is, yes, it is how it sounds. They are a mix between code and art, and they're responsible for the any impact done in the game, or any moving texture, for example. So if we're talking about a triple A game, a huge game like Cyberpunk, such action like shooting needs particle system, and on that particle system, it's most likely that there was a team of 5 engineers working on it. So, of course, on my game, I'm the only technical artist and I'm just learning. But if I said what they actually do, what's the difference between coder is that they write shaders. So shader is a program that runs on the GPU, which tells it how to render a material on the screen. So if there's anything technical that you want to get out of this presentation, is that remember that a coder writes logic on the CPU, central processing unit, and a technical artist writes shaders on a GPU. So audio, again, is also like in any other industry. So we have a sound designer for any sound effects, or when the door closes or opens, or a composer who would create a background music for when you pass the door, let's say so. Studios hire entire orchestras to compose huge albums just for one game, since remember, we are bigger than Hollywood and music industry. So we do need that exclusivity and entire albums dedicated to us. And then we have code. Of course, there are a lot of code roles, just as you saw, like tools, AI. But right now, I'm quickly going to go run over a gameplay programmer, which of course would say that this door now opens and closes based on the proximity to the player. It can also be locked and locked through the script. Now, what that means is that they probably, most likely, we have two coding languages that are industry standard, C++ and C#. Now, you can find games made in Java as well, but these two are the main ones because C++ might be more difficult, but it gives us a lot of flexibility and a lot of control over memory. But that it makes it really easy to make a lot of mistakes. So that's why a lot of beginners choose to work with C#, where a lot of libraries and a lot of the compiling is automated. So now that we know what roles we've got, we can actually try to make the game. Let's try to imagine it. We have a pre-production phase, which is all about ideas, prototyping, planning, budget, and storyboarding. We have a production, which includes most of our team, which is modeling, designing, audio, physics, rendering. Pre-launch is about the testing, releasing alpha and beta, and it's all about marketing and going to gaming conventions. So if anybody of you are familiar with the gaming conventions, this is where the developers are go out and just market their game like it's the best thing ever, and it is the best thing ever for them. And once you do release the game, it's not over, because it does reach the gold state, which means that the game is ready to be printed out on a CD if it needs to be printed out on the CD. But even if it's printed out, you can still polish it through updates or DLCs, which is DLC is basically additional content, adding a story to your game, any skins, any events that would generate extra revenue. And now that if we go into pre-production phase, this is all about how do we pitch our project? How do we stand out? Because it's still a business. So we need an investor to believe in our project. So it's all about concepting, all about preparing our game design document, which is a lot like business plan. And yes, we need a lot of help from producers as well to plan our project either in a Kanban or Scrum manner. And then we also need to pick an engine our game is going to use, because an engine is a space for graphics, physics, audio, and logic all in one. This is where you where the team creates all of that stuff and then you just put it in one. Now, of course, if you have the money, if you have the time, you could hire quite a few programmers to create an engine and software just for that one game. But if you don't have millions of dollars, we have main the most popular engines that are Unity and Unreal Engine 4. There are more of them, but these are the main industry standards. Unity is something I'm learning right now because it's very beginner friendly and it works on C sharp. It has a huge community, really helpful people, but it has some graphics limitations. Now, that doesn't mean that it's a bad engine. It's just the community is so huge that it's more likely to have more bad looking games. I'm sorry for the cat that goes into the screen. And then we have an Unreal Engine, which is mainly expected to be known by the bigger studios since it uses C++, more control, but of course not as beginner friendly, even though I am looking to learn that as well. Then we have prototyping. Now that we have our game design, we need to see if those mechanics that we just designed on the paper work in the game. And this process takes about 10 to 20% of the entire project time. And yes, sometimes it does begin just from scratching and scribbling simple papers because it's just that fast. And once it's done, once the core mechanics are laid down, we can actually start putting some rough animations in to see if the mechanics are fun enough, just as we thought. And if we go to production phase, it's the longest phase, but it's the shortest in my presentation for now. This is where the management is key. This is where the level designers block out the levels. This is where environment artists put the assets in. This is where animators take the models from the character artists and animate them either frame by frame, or if the game has cutscenes, then we can also get help from motion capture, which is widely recognized by the movies industry as well. And also, this is the time to test and see how the mechanics actually interact within the game. Because yes, we do have quite a bit of shenanigans coming out of our assets that just do not work like intended, and they might not work, but they also could take longer than expected. And this is where just producer comes in and says, like, guys, we have to scratch this mechanic over. And of course, there are a lot of developers like who fall in love with those mechanics. And this is why producer's job is so ruthless, because they still have to cross out some of the most favored mechanics because there's just not enough time to make it. And people just, there's a lot of anger towards it, but you gotta do what you gotta do. It's your baby. It will never be finished, never feel finished for you. So this is where it's important to just know what you cross out. And now we go to post-production. And this is where our baby, our project is now finished, is now in a gold state. And this is on us to it's the job is never over. You still need to work on updates. There's still going to be a lot of bugs, a lot of complaining players. Perhaps your story doesn't feel complete and you want to expand the story through DLCs. And while you're working on it, you see your baby grow in the industry or die. So thanks for listening. And if there are any questions, of course, feel free to ask. Game on.
Awesome. Thank you, Auguste. That was really good. That was a really great insight, I think, for myself and for everyone else into exactly that, like the background of the game. I mean, from my experience, just sort of turning up the game, this is great fun, And then when you actually look beyond, actually see the deeper levels to it, I guess there's an appreciation there on your end. That's probably my first question would be, I know that when you understand how things work, like people who understand maths, understand physics, when they see objects move, it's more interesting. But when you understand why something is a way, you get more out of it. Do you have a similar thing here that when you play games, you don't play them the same way people who have no experience in the industry play them? Do you play them in a different way, and do you see them differently?
Of course. It's like, I noticed that before, and this is another reason why I got into the industry, because I do not play to just win or just to go through the levels and that's it. It's usually, even when the previous game I played and my friends look at me play, and I just stop and look at random places, and they're like, "What are you looking at? The objectives on the other side." And it's like, "Oh no, I'm like looking at water," or "Oh no, I'm looking at the fog and just how it's moving, so that maybe I can use in my game." Now, of course, I barely understand how most of the things work, even though I'm trying my best. I usually fake in my game. A lot of the visuals are faked. So for example, the fog is just a bunch of particle systems going up and down in a very slow manner. It's not actually programmed, because I'm only yet to know how to do that. But in a huge games, in terms of optimization is a huge thing, so that it runs smoothly on any game, on any device. So yeah, of course, I'm pretty sure that the perspective changes quite a bit.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. Right, I'll open up questions to everyone else. Anyone got any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and just speak. Otherwise, I'll pick on you if you don't. Right, Sammy, got any thoughts?
I was going to say, I was, what was it? When you said it was 160 billion compared to, was it 24 billion for the movies and stuff like that? Yeah. For me, that really shocked me. Yeah. That kind of difference between the two industries in terms of the value that they get really blew me away. It's like we have an Oscars for the movies, and there's plenty of movies awards, but I don't know, I don't think they get the same respect in terms of the creativity that goes into making these games, because in a movie you've just got to do the front visual, but when you do a game, you've got the whole environment that you've essentially got to create, and it's got to be in, you interact with it as well. So yeah, not really a question, it's just kind of blew me away, the amount I didn't know.
Very easy, and you, as you think of it, for example, let's take Fortnite for example. Only Epic Games alone has generated almost as much as music industry, for example, all combined. Just one company. So it's all about, well, yeah, they live on the kids who steal credit cards from their moms, but it still goes into the general data.
Nice, yeah, definitely. Bigger industry than I realized as well. Like, pretty massive, isn't it? Ryan, any thoughts or questions?
My question, I don't really know what it is, but would be around the engines and thinking, is it a big strategy for the companies that have the cash to build the engines and use them to basically give their engines a way to allow smaller development companies to build for those engines in mind? Because presumably, if you own the infrastructure, if you own the engine, you're going to get paid by the developers who want to build games for that engine. So is it a case of if you've got the cash, build your own engine and build the best one?
Of course, yeah. A lot of course mates of mine is just, they have an often question rises up that, oh, are we going to learn to code an engine? Now, the answer to that we get usually is that Unity and Unreal is massive. It's meant for the general developers, for the general masses, for the general game that is below anything below AAA. So there are even AAAs made on engine like Star Wars, the Star Wars. A lot of the Star Wars games are made on Unreal. And if you've got the budget, go ahead. There are a lot of small engines like Game Maker and any other, CryEngine, I think, as well. But it's probably like, I'm not sure if you're aware of Visual Studio or like any other company trying to align with Microsoft. Like when there's Microsoft, let's say Microsoft is free to use, then why would anybody go for any other engine, any other software, if there's Microsoft that is entirely, it's huge. So that's how it is with Unreal and Unity.
Amazing. Thanks so much.
Awesome. And I'll just hand over to you, probably final question from B.
Hi, yeah, that was so interesting. Oh my gosh, like I've just been as you've been talking, I've been like looking back at when I play games, and especially in COD Mobile, there's like a ship level and then there's an amazing sunset. I just sometimes stay there. It's so cool. But my question kind of is, so I come from an architecture background, and how we kind of get jobs is we imagine projects and we kind of make a portfolio showing how we kind of had that process from start to finish. But this developing games is such a major project with so many individual roles that all contribute to the final outcome. So as someone like if someone wanted to start out in game design, how do they kind of go about getting their first job? Because it seems like it's you can like learn like a coding language, but how do you actually get into that kind of company, because it is so complex and it seems difficult to create a whole game by yourself just to prove that you can do it.
It is insanely complex, and there are a lot of people who just want that role. So most often what you hear from the recruiters is just make a game. I mean, it doesn't need to be huge. It can be just a simple Flappy Bird or a simple endless runner. And as long as you can show the employer that you have multiple of them, and as long as you show that you know the process of producing it, releasing it perhaps on the store. There are a lot of global game jams. Game jams is just an event where multiple developers just gather the teams, or they just get to know each other and make a game, for example, in a week. Now, of course, that means a lot of sleepless nights, but there's a lot of fun that goes into it. And that's just yet another project that goes into your portfolio. Like we have one of the best students in my university. She's just 18 years old, yet she has like 20 projects built already.
Wow.
And they are just small projects, just just one tappers on the Google store or puzzles, and they catch the eye of the recruiter. They test your skills, of course, and as long as they see that you know the process and you actually made something tangible, that's all they care about. They don't even care about the degrees. I'm here just because of the connections mainly.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's useful for people to know. Thank you.
Awesome. I mean, there's probably something to take away from that for other industries as well, about how that can be applied, of like, rather than applying with, hey, I could do this, or I've got potential to do that. It's, look, I've already built this. Like, how can that mindset be applied to other roles as well? It's really interesting. But yeah, I think that probably wraps us up, Augusta. So yeah, really appreciate that. That was really awesome. Particularly liked the examples, like bringing out the different graphics and showing it rather than telling it, and the different ways that a door can be evolved through the process as well. It's really appreciated.
I was expecting that a lot of people do underestimate it, so I had to show the reality. But yeah, thanks for the space and this and stage.
Awesome.